Hi, welcome back. In the last video, we looked at the Scratch interface and how we can navigate through it. In this video, we will learn about coordinates and make a sprite move by changing its position horizontally. We will also add a form block that will change the posture and make the sprite look like it's walking. So let's get started. Alright, let's talk about coordinates. A coordinate is simply the location of a sprite on the stage. If you are a student and you have done graphs in school, you will know that the coordinate is made up of two axes. Made up of the x-axis or the horizontal axis and the y-axis or the vertical axis. These two axes are responsible for changing the position of the sprite on the stage. The x-axis determines the position of the sprite from left to right, that is, horizontally, and the y-axis determines the position of the sprite from top to bottom, that is, vertically. So the next thing we are going to do is to open Scratch and play around changing the x position and y position of our sprite and see how it's going to position itself on the stage. Alright, for this video, I'll be using the installed version of Scratch on my computer, and like I said in the previous video, you'll be able to still follow along using the browser version. So open your browser if you don't have Scratch installed and just follow along. So I'm going to open mine installed on my computer, and the Scratch interface is going to load just like it would load on the browser. So before I start changing the position of the sprite on the stage using the x and y axis, I want to put a backdrop on the stage, and the backdrop I want is this x and y grid here. So I'm going to click it, and I'm going to change the size of the sprite to 50 to make it smaller, and I'm going to drag it to the left, just right here. Now I want you to notice that in the middle where the x-axis and the y-axis is touching, there's this point. This point is called the origin, and close to the origin you can see that the value of x is 0 and the value of y is also 0. This simply means that if I change my x value to 0 and change my y value to 0 also, it's going to position the character or the sprite at the middle of the stage. So right now I'm going to change the x value to 100 and the y value to 50, and just try to visualize the position of the character on the stage when I use those values. I'm going to change x to 100, and it will move it 100 steps forward in the horizontal axis. So if I click enter, you see it's exactly at point 100. Now if I change y to 50, it's going to move 50 upwards the vertical axis. So you can see this is actually at the middle of 100 on the vertical axis. You can see 100 on the vertical axis. Let's do one more. The x-axis and the y-axis has two parts. The left side of the x-axis is negative values, and the right side of the x-axis is positive value. From the origin upwards of the y-axis is positive value, and from the origin downwards in the y-axis are negative values. So I'm going to now set x to, let's say, minus 50, and now set y to, let's do 150, and let's see the result we get. So you see, if you trace the position right now on the horizontal axis, you see it's in the middle between 0.0, which is the origin, and minus 100. And if you trace the vertical axis upwards, you see that it's in between 100 and 200, even though we don't have up to 200 on our graph. Alright, so I'm going to remove this page right now, and let's try to use code to change the x and y axis to make our character work. So I'm going to go to backdrops and click delete to delete, and now go back to our sprite by selecting it, and I'm just going to bring it down and then change the size back to 100. So we are going to make our character work anytime we click this flag at the top here. So the first thing we are going to do is to go to events and drag this when flag click event. And you don't have to worry if you don't understand what event is for now, because we are going to talk about it later in this series. And then I'm going to go to motion, and I'm going to take this move step block. You can change the value here from 10 to any value we want. You can change it to, let's say, 5, depending on how far we want the character to move each time we click the flag. Watch, anytime I click this flag, the character is going to move 5 steps. Alright, so the character is moving now, but to give it the impression that it's walking, we need to add one more block. I'm going to go to looks, and I'm going to drag this next costume block and place it below the move 5 steps block. So if I click on it, you see it's now giving us the impression that the character is walking. Now if I go to costume, you see that the reason why it's giving us the impression that the character is walking, because we have 2 poses here that simulates a walk cycle. So if I switch from the 2 poses, you see it gives us that movement. So next costume is going to create different movements for different sprites based on the drawings you have available on your costumes. So now I'm going to go back to code, and I want to mention something. The move steps block can alter both the y and the x axis, but for now, each time we click, you notice that only the x axis is changing. The reason is because our direction is at the default, which is 90. If I should change my direction to, let's say, let's do 60. The moment I start clicking, it's going to change both the x axis and the y axis. But if I set it back to default, which is 90, I'm just going to type 90 and start clicking, it's going to change just the x axis. So it's important that you keep your direction at default position when you want to use move steps block, so that you can change just the x axis if that's what you want. Alright, so we have a simple task for you. The next costume block will change the available posture of a sprite, like I just said. So meaning it can create a walking movement for a sprite with walking costumes, and a flying movement for a sprite with flying costumes, or even a dance movement depending on the available costumes for that sprite. So I want you to play around with the next costume block. Use it to create as many movements as you can. Let's look at the key takeaways. 1. Coordinates are made up of the x-axis, which is left to right, and the y-axis, which is up to down or top to bottom. Secondly, the move steps block changes the x-axis by default, but can affect both axes if the direction is adjusted. And lastly, the next costume block makes the sprite look like it's walking, but can create a different movement based on the costume available for that sprite. Right now, our sprite can walk, but I have to click on this flag continuously to make it work. But it would be very nice if we could keep it working automatically or make it respond when we press a key. In the next lesson, we are going to dive into events and loops to make that happen. You don't want to miss it. See you there.